So I took a well-deserved break during Christmas, between Christmas and New Year's, and I have to say it's quite difficult to get back into the swing of things, but here I am. And in this video, I'll be working on two paintings simultaneously. However, this particular video is the completion of the painting on the left-hand side, and I will be publishing another video for the one on the right, so be on the lookout for that in a few days. I also want to warn you about the shift in lighting in this video because I've had some problems with the overhead installation that I use for filming. It kind of broke right after Christmas, and you need two people to fix it. And so I was not able to do that, and I had to deal with, at some point, a tripod that was mounted on my desk. And the tripod does not extend really wide. The legs were in my way, and it was playing tricks with my mojo like you have no idea. So I had to figure out another way, and I finally did. I'm gonna flash a photo here. This is I guess you can say it's a microphone extension or an extension arm for a microphone. It clips onto the desk. It's a little flimsy because I've had to wedge a part of the tripod that I was using because the head kind of like comes off the tripod. So I was able to wedge that in the loop where the microphone would be, and I have tie wraps and I have like blue tacky tape. It's a very artisan installation, I should say, but I thought I was being very creative. The only drawback to this one is that I don't know how long it's going to hold because of the weight, and also it kind of shifts side to side. So if you see the image shifting, I tried my best to not capture anything during the shifting, but or the swinging, I should say. But sometimes I forgot, so I'm sorry about that. All right, enough about this. So the paintings that I'm working on are going to be the artwork for my next sticker release, which should be ready by the end of January, I'm hoping, if all goes well. And so as soon as it's listed at my Etsy store, I will let you know. Of course, my patrons, some of my patrons, those that are in the $20 level category, will get them for free. So they'll get the whole collection for free. And this is kind of like a series on, at first I was calling them houseplants, but they're not really houseplants. What I did is I looked at photos, or reference photos of leaves, because I do like large leaves. And so I found a few, and I found branches. And so I kind of like combined these photos, or my sketching of these photos, and put them into vases. So part of it is reference, part of it is mine, but they're not really plants. They're branches. Yeah, I think we can say they're branches. I've got a branch of, for instance, a boxwood hedge. And so I thought it'd be fun to do that. There will be a houseplant sticker release at some point, but this is not it. Let's not talk about what isn't. Let's just focus on what we're doing. So at this stage right now, I kind of worked in reverse. I don't know why, it just happened that way, but I've given a first layer with that green gold, and avoiding the center veins on each of the parts of that leaf. And then I went back in with another layer because I didn't want the vein to be completely white. I could have made it easier on myself in a way. The first layer could have had like that first color all over on the veins, and then the second layer I could have avoided the veins. So you could do either way. I don't think one is better than the other. It's probably the way I did it is probably more difficult, but I like to complicate my life. Now it's just a matter of, experimenting, and plus I usually work intuitively, going in with no plan. So having to work within the confines of a sketch is not something that I am entirely comfortable with. I still have a lot to learn about it. But it's good to vary it up once in a while. It gives you more experience, and I'm not saying that I would do this type of watercolor painting all the time, but it is very good to practice brush control, which is something that I would probably get into a separate video. I might do something about that because I think it's a very important part of watercolor painting. Also water control, that's another big one. I've also realized a little too late that I was using a brush that was too small for the vases anyways. For this one it's not so bad, but for the second video you're going to see I've had to cover larger areas, and because it's a number 1 round silver black velvet brush, which can hold quite a bit of liquid, but it's meant for small areas. And so when you're filling in a larger shape and you have to leave to reload your brush, by the time you come back, the edges of what you were painting before have already started drying. Unless you load it, and unless you're doing small gestures and you keep reloading and you make sure that your paint remains wet like I'm kind of doing right now, it could be problematic. And I'm not sure why I didn't realize it until the end, which is quite sad. So I'm supposed to show you how to do things. But I'm learning just like everybody else. So the leaves looked a little flat by the time I had done the second layer with the green gold. So I went back in with sap green and I made sure to add variations. So this is a good example of a fully loaded brush, which is something I usually avoid when I'm working in layers. But this time around I wanted a variegated look on the leaves, so I made it work. I like it. I really do. I like that last step, that last watercolor step on the leaves. Eventually I will be shading with colored pencils, and I knew that before I finished the leaves. The one thing I want to mention also when you're working in layers is that when you go back, when you're trying to fill in exactly the shape with the second layer, just be mindful of your edges and also how much liquid you have on your brush, because it's very easy to have inconsistent edges when your brush is loaded with water, just because it's more difficult to see where the paint ends because of the reflection of the water. Another thing that I noticed I forgot to do is sketch in the vases, decorations I should say. I think it's because at the time that I did the sketch I wasn't entirely sure how I would address the vases, and I just wing it, which I usually do anyways in a lot of my paintings. So I have lines that are too straight, and it wasn't going well, and so I decided to purposely do squiggly lines on purpose. And it worked. I think it's a fun look. I can almost imagine this kind of vase in real life where those jaggedy lines are grooves inside the clay, and the clay artist kind of made it on purpose to have these wiggly or waves. I would like to have a vase like that. And yeah, I did it again. Gold. I don't think I should mention it anymore. You know that gold is going to find its way onto my paintings, into my paintings. This one in particular, I think, is by far my favorite gold. It's, oh, let me see if I can remember the exact nomenclature of this color. It's a Kramer Pigments watercolor. I bought it in a pan. I didn't make it myself. It's called Colibri Pearl Luster Pale Gold. Yes, it's beautiful. It's not too yellow. I'm not huge on yellow gold. I mean, I do like gold, but I prefer like a pale gold. So when I started this painting, of course, I knew I was going to shade with pencils, and because it just gives you that depth and texture, which I like. I'm working on cold pressed watercolor paper. This is the Canson XL, and it is slightly textured. It's not the most textured paper though. I've seen more lumpy bumpy. So that's why I find for me this is the best, because it's enough to show that you have used colored pencils, but it's not too lumpy bumpy. Like, it's not super textured. If you don't like to see the pencil marks all that much, what you could do is use a hot pressed watercolor paper. I'm not a big fan of hot pressed. I prefer cold pressed. That's just a preference. I find that the times that I've tried to work with hot pressed, I've had difficulty with not the colored pencils, but the actual watercolor painting part. It does not react the same way. So I might experiment more in the future with it, but I like cold press. My favorite is cold pressed 100% cotton. This one is not cotton, it's cellulose. I'm not sure why, but when I shade with colored pencils, I always start with the darker color. It's just something that I've always done. I know you can start with the light and work yourself into the dark. And I'm also quite impressed now with the way my camera is set up. It zooms in really, really close because it's lower, it's closer to my table. And it sees things that I can't see with my own eyes. So now I'm looking at this and I'm like, wow, your edges are pretty uneven, and that center where all the veins meet, it's kind of like ambiguous. It's not very well defined. The joys of creating. I love it though. I love it when a painting is not perfect. I think it just adds character. And that painting is done. That wasn't too long, was it? Of course, I cut a few bits and pieces here and there, but that's pretty much it. I cannot wait to see this sticker collection because I think it's going to be fun. I think it's fresh, perfect for if you are living in an area like me where there's a lot of snow. I need green. I need foliage now. So I think I'm going to use the heck out of them, and I will let you know when they're ready. That's it. Thank you so very much for watching my video and for leaving your comments. I also want to say a huge thank you to my patrons who support me over at Patreon. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below, and I will see you soon in a few days. Okay.